So this is a startup test. I've got the A50 on the right and a brand new F62 or M62 on the left. So the phone on the right is about a year old. It's been used heavily for the last 12 months. The phone on the left has just been ported over using Samsung Smart Switch. So basically it's got nothing on it except the apps. Okay, so now to make it even, so apparently the M62/F62 has the old S Note 10 8-core processor in it, and the A52, I'll have to look that up, but I'll put that down below. And you might ask, why go for basically a phone when I've already got a phone? So the reason is, you can see that this one is a lot fatter. The F62 is a lot fatter. The reason is that this has a 7,000 milliamp hour battery, and this A50 has a reasonably paltry, I think it's a 4500 or 4000 milliamp hour battery. I don't really care about the camera. They're both pretty good. I haven't really done a comparison. So they both start up pretty snappily. The F62 apparently does 4K video, but you know, if I go into camera and go into video, you can go full HD, you can go ultra HD at 30 frames a second, you can do all sorts of cool stuff. So, and it also, if I go into more, the other thing that it has is a macro lens, and I had a bit of a play with this the other night, and it would seem that the macro lens is a fixed focus. Can't quite bring up, there we go. That's not too bad. It's about 3-4 centimeters. Whereas if I switch out of that and go to just normal mode, the autofocus can't quite catch that. So the autofocus is good up to about 3 centimeters further away from the macro. So what point is the macro if it's not autofocus? So why would I buy a new phone? So the fact is, guys, if you hold onto your phone for one more year, it's the equivalent of taking 60,000 cars off the road. So hang on to your bloody phones, all right? But the only reason is my 17-year-old has been putting up with a crappy old Huawei for 5 years, so he's going to get my old A50. And the reason that I'm sticking to this phone and not going to a Galaxy Note 10 or something posh like that is because I really want, one, the big fat 7,000 milliamp hour battery, and this headphone socket. So I'm happy to lose the IP rating. I don't really care about the cameras. They're all going to be as good as each other these days, and Samsung really is class leading. And basically it's to get maintain the USB-C connectivity, because that's kind of the standard now, and also for that 3.5mm socket.
Well, here's the rub. So what do I like and what don't I like about my new M62 Samsung phone? What I like, the headphone jack obviously, which while I hate cords, I do use it daily for work calls. Speaker volume is great, it's equally as loud as the A50, it's clear, it doesn't have distortion. I love the freaking awesome battery life. 7,000 milliamp hour means up to 5 days of light use. 2 days if I absolutely flog it using GPS tracking, phone calls, web browsing, filming, musical films, blah blah blah. I find it uses about 20 to 25% of battery life a day maybe. That's about, say, 20 minutes of calls, some browsing, no streaming, no music and no video, just as a phone. Processing speed is so much faster than the A50. It's really noticeable, even after using it now for 2 months. But keep in mind that this does use the Exynos 9825, which is the 8-core CPU from the previous S20 flagship. So basically, you're getting an S20, but it does cost about the same. The only problem with that is that the S20 and the S10 only have a weenie 4,000 milliamp hour battery, and they don't have a headphone jack. You do need a USB-C to 3.5mm adapter. Not a deal breaker, but the battery life is a problem. What do I hate about it? Well, there are a couple of things. One is, because it's not an Australian delivery, it's installed with Indonesian bloatware garbage really, including things like TikTok and Twitter, which I've just uninstalled. Also, games like Coinmaster, Wadoku, something called Tubi, all also uninstalled. You could get around this bloat with a universal bootloader to flash it to an Australian Android derivative, but it's easier to just uninstall what I don't use. I haven't bothered to flash it. The biggest pain is that the pre-installed Samsung Pay is an Indonesian variant and doesn't work in Australia, but Google Pay works just fine. There's also some payment app called Dana, which is some Indonesian payment thing. Can't use it, won't work, blah blah blah, but you can't uninstall Samsung Pay and reinstall an Australian variant. It just won't work. Is the camera better? The M62 certainly has more camera options. It takes 64 megabyte pictures, it's got motion capture on photos, and something kind of stupid and gimmicky called AR Doodle, which I'll play with a bit later, where you can draw in a video. It also takes 4K video, which is pointless to me because I don't have a powerful enough PC to edit 4K anyway. The A50 does 4K too, by the way, but only with third-party apps. Samsung disables it using the inbuilt camera app, probably to force millennials to upgrade to something newer that they really don't need. The screen, I'd say, look, it's probably the same as the A50, and to my 50-plus-year-old eyes, there's no change. It's easy to read in bright sun. The 256 gig built-in memory is fantastic compared to 64 on the old A50. So much so that with the freed up memory, I can dump another few gigs of music on it without any problem. I don't even think about memory now, actually. I'd still have a 32 gig SD card installed, but basically it doesn't get used for anything. It's kind of redundant. The 8 gig of RAM is great. I find I'm not having to optimize the phone often, if at all. I also found plenty of low-cost cases for the phone at around $20 each on eBay, which fit perfectly. So here's the rub. It's a great phone. It's a little big, it's a little heavy, and it's kind of expensive.
So what else do I really like? Well, the fingerprint sensor. Bang, it's just open. You go, bang, it just opens. So there's the fingerprint sensor on the side there, volume up, volume down, and it's just fantastic. It's infallible. Whereas the old phone, which had the fingerprint sensor on the home screen, you would tap it, 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 and it just wouldn't. It was crap. It was absolute crap. So you end up having to put your passcode in or your whatever your swipe code was. But this, bang, perfect. Just too easy. Big improvement. So, as a final wrap up, I've had this phone, a Samsung Galaxy F62 or M62, for about 8 months. Bought it in December 2021 for $860, and basically I absolutely love a couple of features, and this compares against the Samsung Galaxy A50, which was a mid-range $400-$500 phone from about 3 years ago. What do I love about this? The battery life, the battery life, the battery life. It's unreal. 7,000 milliamp hours. I can start a day with 27, 28%. I don't even worry about charging it. Unless I'm going to be flogging it using GPS or something like that, I'll still finish the day with 8, 10, 12%. I can get 3-4 days maybe out of this with no problems at all. The processor is really snappy. I don't have any real comparison or issues with the camera. Both cameras are excellent between the A50 and this one. This does a few more trickier things, but basically I can tether this to a laptop, which is usually the thing that drinks battery, or use GPS, and I can start a day at say 70 or 80%, and even tethered hotspotting all day, I still won't use more than say 30 or 40%, which would normally drain a standard battery very, very, very quickly. So absolutely loving this phone. The other thing that absolutely sets it apart against the A50 is the fingerprint sensor. Huge thumbs up for this phone. Camera's great. It's got a plug-in speaker port, which I really, really want. It's got USB-C, which is future compatible since the Europeans have basically banned Apple Lightning connectors and other types of chargers, so everything has gone standard to USB-C now. Really, really can't recommend this phone highly enough. Not an Australian issue. I do have some issues with the Samsung Pay not always working, but generally that's okay and it's a minor gripe. Otherwise, absolutely rate this phone. If you can find one, grab one.